Hello, tree huggers, poets, bards and earth care people everywhere. Welcome to Woodland Barding Weekly number 2. I'm afraid it's been a couple of weeks since the last one, and I've been travelling for the last couple of weeks. I was hoping to do some interviews, do some features, but I've got a catalogue of half-finished content. Please excuse the crackle and also the break-up in this introduction, because every now and again I'm actually running towards the tripod as it's falling over and to catch it, and then we start all over again. As I say, I have got some content, not sure what's coming up in this edition. I'm going to go into the studio, see what I can put together by midnight tonight, and that's what you get. Today is February the 2nd, 2017. It's the day after Brigid's Day, and it's the day before Imbolc has measured around our position in the universe, and with the sidereal time. So I'll be featuring something about Brigid, breeder, breed, and so got to feature something on that. I won't be doing anything with the labyrinth because I haven't been here, there hasn't been anything done. So without further ado, I'm going to go off to the studio and see what we've got. Some of you may think I'm a bit late for a Brigid feature, but with the weather the way it is, especially today, I think I may be spot on. Brigid's blanket may well be starting to cover us, starting with a few more cold nights though. Even so, the first nettles and dandelions will soon be amongst us, and the bees will come, hopefully. What I believe I've learned is that Brigid was once a description, much more than being a name. Several women from past stories were honoured with being identified with that description to describe who they were and what they did. To me, Brigid is more about describing the landscape changes, and landscape never wears a human identity, as there was once no human ownership. This hint of springtime is a time when people focus on making their Brigid's crosses. Most have been made on January the 30th, or some people made them on February the 1st. Others waited until this weekend, and then their old crosses from last year were burned. Here are some people pulling rushes so that they can make their own Brigid's crosses. Making the crosses is really a meditation rather than a craft. There's never such a thing as a bad cross. Every cross made, no matter how it appears, has a special gift of prayer within it. There is always a thought for a relation or other person close to us that is needing divine healing, possibly due to an ailment contracted or made worse through the dark past winter. And there may be thoughts for the good nourishment and good blessings for the year ahead. Many of us light candles, responding to how we translate Brigid as a bringer of light after the darker days of winter. We remember and hear more tales of Brigid as a bringer of light, a flame that should never be extinguished. We consider Brigid's Day as a day to celebrate with fire. It is still cold in our part of the world, so we use fires for warmth and nourishment. But I tend to consider this time as being the time of the water bearer. It is the midpoint of Aquarius, once represented by a woman pouring water from an urn. Then that woman became a man pouring, and now the symbol is usually just water. But Aquarius is an air sign. Could be confusing. There was a time, not long back, when this was the time that snows melted on hills or heavy rain fell. That water still falls through the swallow holes deep into the earth, into underground lakes, flowing into underground rivers and streams that push up in some places around where we live, called turlocks. When the turlock lakes fall below the ground again, good grazing then appears for the summer. Some of this water, swallowed into the earth, bubbles up to us as fresh, mineral-rich water springs, and humans have revered these springs as holy wells of healing and blessing for thousands of years. This is perhaps the best-known holy well, the Tully Well outside of Kildare, on some land that has been adapted for prayer, meditation, and celebration. Many people bathe their feet here and discover that this space gifts a trust in present and presence for a while, to be inspired and be thankful. Here is the now hidden wayside well, the original Brigid's well at Kildare. Imagine how precious such a water spring would have been in the days without piped water, taps and faucets. This may be forgotten through our modern interpretations and rituals at these sacred wells. A simple visit and trying the waters with trust reveals all. Even so, we still call upon Brigid as a person, as an entity, an image that we put human cloaked clothes on. It's unlikely we would vision Brigid with a t-shirt and jeans, would we? We also tie rags, cluties, to native trees near a well as the deliverance of our prayers. Often, this is a tradition that employs a hawthorn tree, or sometimes the chosen tree is an ash, birch, rowan, and even holly. If you do this, hang the cluties or rags, please do use natural materials and tie them loose, and never, never, ever bang metal into them. There are places where we may turn ancient stones. Today, this is done with ritual, but not long back people sometimes ground their first herbs of spring with them. Many people used to pour milk into these as a prayer gift to Brigid to bless their cows and future yields and harvest. But snowdrops are my favourite symbol of this time. I feel they take us away from the image of Brigid as a person, or even as a vague human-formed goddess with a gender. For me, snowdrops remind us of light and life, remind us of birth, remind us of germination, remind us of the dance of dark and light. Remind us of the weaving of male and female through every cycle. Remind us that more spring flowers are about to appear, and the warmer, lighter days will be here soon. Allow me to close this feature with a traditional Irish Brigid blessing from Claire Roach. one more short feature so I can get this late Woodland Barding Weekly off to you. On our travels, I revisited a cottage I bought when I was 18 years old. Quite a few changes have been made since. I bought the cottage for £2,000 in 1968. The current owners paid much more than £200,000. This is near a place called Stony Littleton. It's quite famous for its Stone Age long barrow cairn. The work going on the left here is a new road, I think, that's being created for this street. And yes, that taller building you see here, that was a church. And here is the current owner of the church, who has made a beautiful home within it. When I lived there, the church people banished me for not attending their church. This time, this man showed Claire and I around. And he showed me how the back of my old cottage now looks from one of his church windows. His own work is amazing, though. This area used to be the altar. But the main reason for being here was to look upon Gladdock's Wood, that is here in the background. I may not be sharing Woodland Barding Weekly with you now, if it was not for here. Gladdock's Wood may be more visible to you here in this photo. For me, this is an important memory, as this was my first advance into what I have done since through my adult years. I did start what I do when I was 6 years old, but this was the start of my grown-ups time. We formed the Gladdock's Wood Band to engage in songs, tunes, stories, folk drama and sketches that were all set around interpreting the folklore stories. This is a closer look at Gladdock's Wood in winter. Sorry, I don't have any photos and recordings of us at that time. We did not have time to visit Gladdock's Wood this time either. There are other things to do, as it's still short light days. I do feel that I will be back here soon though, and maybe visit some neighbours who are still there, who I think stole our band master tapes, and I really want to get our live at Glastonbury recordings from way back then. At the end of this day, we did climb Glastonbury Tor, but unlike Gladdock's Wood, I do not think I'll return here again, so this was possibly bye-bye Glastonbury, even though it was 44 years ago since I was here last time. And here we are, catching a bit of sun setting behind the clouds and mist that was here. Before climbing the Tor, we visited the Chalice Well. I did seem to be happy being here though. But now this sunsetting pic is a sign that I must cut this travel story short and get this Woodland Barding Weekly off to you so that I can get working on the next edition pronto. Hello again, tree huggers, bards, poets and earthcare people. Thank you for watching this edition of Woodland Barding Weekly number 2, the improvised version of Woodland Barding Weekly. If you'd like to receive more the future editions of Woodland Barding Weekly, please look at the right hand column there and subscribe through Patreon. It says $1 a month there. If you can do that, or even a bit more, it does help us out with the cost of productions, the costs of bards in the woods that does have expenses, and maybe a little left over to help out with the expenses with these labyrinth gardens. Now, another thing I'd like to request is, would you like to be interviewed on future Woodland Barding Weeklies? If your work, hobby, interest is involved with trees, with gardening, or any kind of earth care, I would love to hear from you, have an interview with you, broadcasted. It'd be good to have other voices on Woodland Barding Weekly. You can get hold of me, talk to me about that through john@woodlandbard.com. That is john@woodlandbard.com, woodlandbard all one word. But right now, I think it's time for me to start working on Woodland Barding Weekly number 3. So it's back off to the studio and have a go at that. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next week.